Thank you for continuing to soar with me in every area of your life. This is another self-care, self-improvement, self-development audio video. Thanks for listening, watching to the end, liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing. Okay, normally I try not to exceed 8 minutes in my videos. I won't make it a habit of doing so, but in this particular audio video, I probably will fail to meet that self-imposed time limit. This is number 4, part 4 in my new daily series, Black Females Be Aware, Black Females Beware. This is number 4 in that series, and it's part 2 of the topic, who is more narcissistic? Now I'm going to read excerpts from about 2 studies, and the first study is titled Racial Differences in Narcissistic Tendencies from 2011, in October 2011, in the Journal of Research in Personality. And I'm reading the abstract only. And it starts out kind of suspect, if you ask me. It starts out with the claim that Black individuals have been found to report the highest levels of self-esteem of any racial group in the United States. The purpose of the present research was to examine whether Black individuals also report higher levels of narcissism than white individuals. The study found that Black individuals do report higher levels of narcissism than white individuals. I truly believe they started that abstract the way they did so as not to offend or to offend less those who disagree or don't like their findings about Black individuals reporting higher levels of narcissism. So they start out with this praise about Black people having higher levels of self-esteem. I'm not saying it's not true. It just seems kind of fishy to me. Anyway, back to the excerpts from a second peer-reviewed article from September 11, 2023, so more recently, and the title is Narcissism Genetic? The Role of Genetics in Narcissistic Personality Disorder. And the excerpts from that study reads, several studies from across the world have demonstrated that narcissism is, at least partly, genetic. In fact, according to a couple of studies, the risk of inheriting narcissism is over 50% in some cases. While narcissism can be attributed in part to genetics, it is difficult to assess how big of a role genetics plays, and this is seen by the range of numbers reported by studies. We do not yet have a specific number or percentage we can point to in determining how important genetics are in the diagnosis of NPD. Further research into this field, even looking into specific genes related to narcissism, is underway and is needed to better understand the genetic etiology of NPD. Now, I forgot to include the source of that article, so I'll go back and read the title. You can research it and pull it up on the internet. And the title of that article is Narcissism Genetic? The Role of Genetics in Narcissistic Personality Disorder. And you can find it online. It's from September 11, 2023. So I then get into my opinions. So this is a scripted audio video, unlike most of my audio videos, which are not. Now, I believe vulnerable or covert narcissism, in answering the question, who is more narcissistic, is more prevalent amongst Blacks, because that type of narcissism is generally rooted in trauma, from my understanding. And no other people in history have been more tortured, tormented, terrorized, or traumatized than the progeny of enslaved Africans or Blacks born and raised in America. Now, that's more than my opinion. That, to me, is a fact. And it, to me, is not a moot point. It's an historical fact that can be very easily proven in no limit of time and has been proven by countless scholars and erudites, learned knowledgeable people from various backgrounds and so-called races. So consider that fact in relation, what I consider to be a fact, the statement I just read, my opinion, in relation to genetic memory and epigenetic memory. Now, I understand those two phrases. Basically, I would explain it as nature versus nurture. Genetic memory, nature. Epigenetic memory, nurture. But I got into a Copilot AI chat. I love Copilot AI, and I'm only using the free version so far. But I got into a Copilot AI chat, and I asked for a definition between the two, genetic memory and epigenetic memory. And here is what the free Copilot AI said of the two. It's an excerpt. Epigenetic memory and genetic memory are fascinating concepts that delve into how our experiences and biology shape us. Epigenetic memory involves changes in gene expression influenced by environmental factors and experiences, while genetic memory refers to the idea that certain types of memories or knowledge can be inherited and present at birth. Again, nature versus nurture. But I have to read that last part about genetic memory. I have to reread that. While genetic memory, the nature part, refers to the idea that certain types of memories or knowledge can be inherited and present at birth. That is profound. So here's another Copilot excerpt regarding the relationship between genetic memory, that which is inherited and present at birth, and the trauma of slavery. And I already gave my opinion about that. And this is what Free Copilot says. The concept of genetic memory can be linked to the trauma of slavery, as the experiences of enslaved ancestors may have influenced the genetic makeup and responses of their descendants. I cut the excerpt off at that point. And it starts talking about intergenerational trauma can be manifested in various ways. And at that point, I cut off the excerpt because what I read thus far definitely coincides with what I stated earlier about the relationship between trauma and genetic memory. Now, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I really don't. Not in this audio video, I don't. And it's supposed to be less than 8 minutes. But my opinion is my opinion, and I've already stated it, and I'm going to continue stating it in the following statements. I believe blacks are more vulnerable or covert narcissists than whites or others, based on the points I just made, all of the things I just said. I agree with the excerpts from the first article I read in this audio video, but only as it relates to covert or vulnerable narcissism in blacks. I believe there are far more white, grandiose narcissists. And to me, that makes sense because of the ideology and philosophy of white supremacy or racism. And that ideology and philosophy, in a nutshell, is that white people are superior to everyone who's ever been alive. Not because of character, not because of the content of character or anything like that, but by the mere fact that they are white. And that, genetically and epigenetically speaking, that belief causes many whites to consciously or subconsciously believe themselves to be superior in every way to all others, especially blacks, and doubly especially darker and darker skinned blacks, simply because they are white. So, if I'm being a little repetitive, I'm partially reading what I wrote. I'm supposed to stick to my script, and I'm partially just talking extemporaneously. So, those are my opinions. Now, as for malignant narcissists, consider the research from part 1 of this series. So you have to go back to part 1 of this series on who is more narcissistic, that I agree with. I'm not going to get into it in this audio video. Hopefully you'll check it out. And considering the history of, serial killers, the making of serial killers, and who historically has been primarily in that group of individuals, and also considering the rise in blackfemicide, the increasing rise in blackfemicide, I would say that there are just as many black malignant narcissists as there are whites. So I believe vulnerable and covert narcissism is more prevalent in blacks, and the more grandiose narcissists exist primarily amongst whites, and the malignant narcissists probably equal when considering the history of serial killers and now the rise in black femicide. So my comparisons are only between blacks and whites, male and female, in this particular series on who is more narcissistic. And as stated in part 1 of this series, conduct your own research. Come to your own conclusions in answering that question. Who is more narcissistic? I have thoroughly, as briefly as possible, but as precisely as possible, shared my opinion. But the bottom line is, you conduct your own research and come to your own conclusions. And that is my self-care, self-improvement, and self-development advice, tip, and suggestion, specifically for black females, but not exclusively. In what is now my daily series, Black Females Be Aware, Black Females Beware. Thanks for listening and watching to the end. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Peace. Peace, peace.